Hi, Gummies. How are you doing today? As you can see, I have a guest with me today, and she is going to talk to us about her beauty supply store called Beauty Bar and Supply, located out in North Carolina, actually. Can you introduce yourself to my Gummies?
Hello, my name is Marie Messick. I am the owner of Beauty Bar and Supply. We're actually located in Fayetteville, North Carolina, but we do also have a website at beautybarsupply.com.
Awesome. Awesome. What led you to the beauty industry?
Well, actually, my first job out of college was working for, at that time, a small company that did natural personal care products. I worked as a planner there, planning products for them. So I spent about 6 years there. Then I went to another position. Another company rather. And I worked there for a few years. And during that time, I changed my hair, basically, as a lot of women have in the last few years. I went natural.
Mm-hmm.
So once I went natural, then I was faced with the problem of trying to find things to take care of my hair. And I found myself a lot of times I was going to some beauty supply stores as well as going to the health food stores and, trying to mix things and, try to figure things out because I needed to take care of my hair. So then I was talking to a friend and we were just talking about beauty supply stores in general. Typical complaints that you will find that they don't have what we need, or, people don't understand our struggles, things like that. So it's like, well, why not open a beauty supply store? So that's kind of how it really kind of started. So it's like, well, if you can't find what you're looking for, as with most entrepreneurs, they tend to kind of create it or create their own lane. So that's really how it began. And the more I did research in how the beauty supply stores would run, because I worked in retail when I was in college, I kind of knew what I didn't like. I didn't like the feel of most traditional beauty supply stores. And then there were a few of the major brands. I liked their lighting, I liked their setup, but they still wasn't personal, I felt, for a woman with my needs in terms of taking care of my hair. So it's like you take a little for this one, a little from that one, and then you mesh it together and throw a whole bunch of your personality in it. So that's kind of how it started.
Okay. Well, what made you decide to go natural? Like, what inspired you to go natural?
I as most women, they have this wonderful, like, enlightening story. I don't have one, honestly.
Mhm.
Um, as I said, after I left that first company and I relocated about an hour and a half, because I used to live in Raleigh, I was having to travel back and forth to get my hair done. So my stylist there, she decided to leave Raleigh. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I really didn't know many people in the Fayetteville area at that time that could do my hair. So I tried to do it at home. That didn't always go so well. It really, really, really didn't. We had a few hiccups. And I tried to venture out with a couple people that were recommended to me at the time. And I felt like I was honestly cheating on my hairstylist. So I was home one day, and actually the person I was dating at the time, his daughter, she was talking about, oh, I want to go natural, I want to cut my hair off. And I was like, okay. She's like, you're going to do it with me, Marie? Okay. So she cut her hair off. I cut my hair off, and then we were like, what do we do with this now that we've cut our hair off? We honestly, at the time, we went to, because I didn't know any hairstylists at the time, we honestly went to Walmart,
Mhm.
to the salon that they have in there, and that's who really cut our hair the first time. Um, and we just kind of went from there.
Oh.
And that was probably now about 5 years ago. And since becoming natural, I have loved it. I've gone through the process of trying to figure out products. It is not just, a hairstyle for me, because now that I reflect on it, I was like, when I was perming my hair, I'm putting this toxic chemical
Mhm.
on my scalp right next to my brain. Probably was not the best thing for me to be doing. So, it's also a journey, because there are a lot of companies out here now that so many women are natural, are saying everybody has a natural hair care line.
Right. It's so funny you said that because I'm similar to you. I didn't really feel like I had like a come to Jesus moment or anything like
Yeah.
that when I decided to went natural. The first time I went natural was probably I want to say about 15 years ago.
Mhm.
And at that time there was not a lot of products in the store. Matter of fact, there weren't any products. I had to order online. I remember using
Yes.
Mrs. Jessie's curly pudding or whatever.
Yes.
But
Hmm.
but the same thing, my hairdresser was retiring from hair salon. She had been doing hair for years and she wanted a career change. And I was thinking, well, I don't know, of any other hair salons that I liked or whatever. And I can't even remember how I was introduced to even being natural, but I was thinking, well, whatever I do, it needs to be something that I can manage on my own once she decides to change her career. And so I did the big chop, and then I started going to the barbershop. And then uh maybe a few years later I went back to the perm, and then like that. Then I went back natural again and I've been natural ever since. So yeah,
Yeah.
like I said, it was no big, earth shattering. It was just kind of a natural progression that helped. And it was true that at a certain point, hair companies weren't catering to natural women. It was about, the chemicals or process or whatever. So times have definitely changed.
Definitely change. Definitely change. And that's one of the things that, when people come into the store, and everyone's at a different part of their journey, but we definitely do our best to educate people. And they were like, well, have you heard of this line? Have you heard of that line? It's so many different brands out there. But as I said, being natural isn't just my hairstyle. It is a lifestyle for me. So I always caution people in saying, if you switched from relaxed hair to
Mhm.
natural, what was your motive? If it's because you don't want the chemicals, then make sure these lines that you're seeing on the shelves, read some of the ingredients,
Mhm.
because some of them can be just as toxic as was the relaxed hair. Now, obviously, to make them shelf stable, they have to have a preservative. We understand that.
Right.
But if the majority of the things that are in there, if you cannot read them, as they say, buyer beware. So
Right.
we just always constantly remind people of that when they're going through their journey.
So how do we educate ourselves on what type of things we should stay away from when we are looking for products for our hair and for our bodies?
Exactly. Same process, because whatever you're putting on your hair or your skin is ultimately gonna wind up in your bloodstream.
Mhm.
That's just the way it is. A lot of times, in terms of just educating yourself as the consumer, my basic rule, simple. If I turn over the listed ingredients and the majority of it, I don't know what it is, I'm generally not going to use it. That's my personal thing. Now, I do understand that there are Latin terms that are written. Yes, definitely. I do understand that. But there are also a lot of product lines that we use general labels for the consumer to understand. At the end of the day, we all have smartphones.
Mhm.
Google some of the ingredients. and see what it says. And then there are some companies that will put out the Latin name for a product, for an item, as well as, the general term for it. Um, and you just kind of have to go through that process as well.
And and I've noticed too, there's no template. Some people will say, oh my gosh, what do you do? Or I've even asked people, what do you do for your hair? Or what do you do for your skin? And sadly, just because it worked for them, even though it looks like you have the same hair type or the same type of skin, doesn't necessarily mean it works for you. So
Exactly. And it's not going to. Um, and a lot of the reason is, like, people come in and they're like, oh, I want this great, fabulous hair. Well, this hair on my head is a wig, okay? So we're just going to be honest about that. But the other side of that is, if you want this long, healthy hair, when we talk to people, we ask what they're using, because sometimes it's just a minor tweak to the process that they're using it with their hair. And sometimes when you will find out, most people don't even drink water.
yeah.
You want healthy hair, you want healthy skin. But when I ask you, how much water do you drink in a day? And it's like, mm, I drink one bottle. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not enough. We definitely have to make sure that we're drinking way more water than we are of other things, and all of that affects your hair, and your skin and your nails. Everything that visually we want a certain way, it does really start like that. And as the saying goes, you are what you eat
Mm-hmm.
and drink. So all of that takes into account as well.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. That is a good that's good information. I've heard several people say that is not always the external. It's the
Exactly.
internal where that works together with the good skin or the
Hmm.
good hair with the hair growth as well. And also too, I think a common I want to say a common thing that people think is going natural is easy per
Oh
se.
no.
And I tell people, because I used to have, when I went natural for a while, my hair was longer. I did more work and more care for my long natural hair than I did for my permed hair. So
You
I'm
will.
like, so anybody who thinks that they're going to go natural and it's like, oh, I just wake up and not do anything to it. It's a labor of love. That's what I always just say. It's a labor of love.
It is. And, one of my employees, she gets on me all the time, because when people come in and they're in their beginning phases of I'm going to go natural, or maybe they haven't committed, my first thing to tell them is to cut it off. Do the big chop. And she's like, Marie, people can transition. You can, to an extent, but the transitioning means you're dealing with your natural roots with relaxed hair. That is frustrating, and people get lost in that. Not to mention, when they're doing that, a lot of times they're wearing braids, they're wearing wigs, they're doing a lot of things. And I'm like, if you're gonna do all that, you might as well just cut off the relaxed hair. And also, when for me, I did do the big chop. I cut it all off, but it gave me that time to learn my hair.
Mhm.
Because when you're just always doing everything else other than your natural hair, and then when it finally grows out, you got a whole lot of hair that you don't know what to do with.
Yeah.
So for me, I cut it all off. I did wear the wigs when I had the very, very teeny weeny afro, but then I was still washing and keeping it moisturized, everything. And then once it finally started to grow out, maybe about 2, 3 inches, because I cut it way off. Once it got to that point, then I discontinued the wigs as much every day. I would wear my hair out.
Okay.
It's just about getting to know your hair. If you did not grow up maintaining your natural hair, it does seem like a lot of work.
Mhm.
But if that's all you've known, because there's a whole batch of young women coming up, all they've ever known is their natural hair. So they will be accustomed to it.
Love that. Tell us more about your store. How so through the necessity you decided to open up your own store, but how did you kind of drill it down? Because like you said, there's so many different directions you could have went into. Could have just been, just products. Do you also sell hair? So tell us a little bit about that journey of deciding about your store.
Okay, so one of the things when I first started out, as I said, we're in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
As we know, natural products themselves, about 5 years ago, the ones that were in the market were not necessarily very inexpensive.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know, would people buy, say, $19, $20 bottle of shampoo?
Mm-hmm.
I just wasn't sure. I knew braiding hair, weave, things like that. I knew those items would sell, but will people buy these natural products that are a little bit more expensive than, what people were used to at the time? So I actually opened a kiosk
Okay.
in our mall, and the place we were located was actually near the food court, and it was the least desired spot
Mm-hmm.
in the mall at the time. Um, but it proved to be good for us, because it wasn't um, anything else like it. We were able to be out in the open for the exposure and things like that. So we stayed in the one location for a few months, and then we had the opportunity to move into the main aisle, which was everyone thought, okay, this is definitely more exposure. People will see you,
Mm-hmm.
on and on and on, because you want visibility in the mall.
Right.
No, it actually was a bad decision. And the
Oh.
reason why it was a bad decision is ladies that are natural and men that are natural, they like to talk about their hair.
Mm-hmm.
And we did have some skin products at the time. They like to talk, ask questions, so they're trying to figure things out. So when you're in this main aisle, you have all these people going on both sides of the kiosk. So they weren't as comfortable talking because there's somebody who's always just kind of just buzzing by, so to speak. So it was like, okay, we need to make a change, and it wasn't meant to necessarily be forever anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time, I was pregnant with my child, and I was like, I need to go ahead and make a change. So um, we closed that in 2016, December 2016, and then I opened this location um, March of 2017. And, from a financial decision, it made far more sense because cost wise was almost the same. It gave us a lot more room, and people could feel comfortable in our space. Um, so that has worked out. And in the meantime, we also launched the website, and it's up, and it's growing and going through its different variations of, from a startup as well. So it's never a dull moment around here. It's never a dull moment. You can definitely say that.
I can only imagine. So,
Yeah.
okay. So I know after watching the show Good Hair, I know that I'm dating myself back with Chris Rock, right?
Mm,
He talked about the whole Korean industry, and then I've heard of some other hair stores who have opened their doors, but because they felt like it was heavy dominated, they weren't able to be successful. But what has your experience been with trying to, you know, order hair and different products and things of that nature?
Um, well, that does exist.
Mhm.
I'm not going to tell you, oh no, that doesn't. It does exist. Um, but just like any business, there's always certain barriers to entry. So it's more or less, how do you um, deal with it? As I mentioned, I carry a lot of North Carolina products.
Mhm.
Um, as a woman that's African American, I carry a lot of products that are African American made. So I buy direct from them. I don't have to go to certain companies that don't want to deal with me, we'll say.
Mhm.
Um, so there's ways of getting around it, but you have to figure it out. You have to be very diligent. There's going to be times where you can have those difficult problems,
Mhm.
um, and you just have to work through it. The other thing I will say is, whenever people ask you to fill out an application and you're sending your information in,
Mhm.
um, sometimes people don't always know who you are on the phone
Okay.
or on your paperwork.
Mhm.
So you fill out all of the information and you just don't give them um, too many reasons to question you, followed up by, what's your minimum order?
Right.
Followed up by answers of, do you want me to wire transfer, cashier's check? There's all sorts of hurdles that sometimes they, being whoever's in control, will make you go through. You can either choose to argue with those, or
Right.
you can say, okay, and I'll call you right back, if that's a company you want to deal with and you meet their terms.
Okay.
Uh, but it's an ever growing, evolving market. So you just have to keep up. And if one company will not sell you a bottle of shampoo, it's okay. There's another company that will.
Right.
One company doesn't want to sell you some weaving hair, it's okay. Because guess what? There's probably another startup company
Right.
that will. You just have to the weed through. It may not be the bigger brand names, but don't be opposed to using some of these smaller companies. The quality is just as good. A lot of times the service is even better
Right.
because they're just as hungry as you are.
Okay.
So you can't lump the whole entire industry
Mhm.
together. I mean, it's an industry. It's just, as I said, I worked in a personal care industry before, and it's not much different. I worked in a manufacturing plant before. It's not much different. It's
But
just how you deal with it.
right. But it's a good point though, but I guess in a way that's kind of good because with manufacturers, they may feel the same way since the stores are dominated by people who don't look like us trying to get shelf space. They're probably facing the same thing. Like some stores don't want to, cater to them because they're smaller or for whatever
Mhm.
reason. So I guess it's kind of working hand in hand. You're kind of helping each other out, giving them space, and then it's also allowing you to provide more options to your customers.
Exactly. It
So
does. Like, for instance, one of my top selling, because obviously natural hair stays thirsty.
yeah,
That's like the biggest thing. It
yeah,
stays thirsty. You gotta water it. You gotta put some butter on. You gotta always do something. So one of my top selling products in my store is made by a small company
mhm.
that is in North Carolina.
Wow.
And honestly, I wish I could take credit and say I sought her out, but I didn't. She called me on the phone, and
Wow.
I'm trying to get products, and I'm researching and doing all this. And, it was at a time, and I'm like, okay, send me your product. How much is your minimum buy?
Right.
She had a small minimum buy-in, and I was like, great, send me your product. I had not used this stuff. So she was just as hungry as I was, and it is my top selling product. I post quite often when I restock, and I'm having to because my customers are loving it.
That's awesome.
So it's just you have to, whatever business you are in, just have to realize there's always going to be challenges and barriers to entry. You just have to figure out what your strategy works for you to get through it.
Speaking, how do you protect yourself against fraud? Like when you're trying to research different companies, is it easy to get caught up with people who misrepresent themselves or try to overstate their product or anything? Like, how do you protect yourself against that?
As with any industry that, and especially a small business owner, I mean, we're out here fighting for every dollar that we get. So I don't need to lose any money because that's how I have to restock my store. A lot of times what you will do, I know a lot of businesses do, we rely on you use PayPal. Just like a regular consumer, you would use PayPal, you would use your credit card to pay for certain for certain items. And that helps mitigate some of that. But it can be very challenging, as well as I won't just order from anywhere. I've got to be able to see I will read your reviews on your company, how you're doing business with your regular consumer, especially if you're doing, let's say, a hair care line. You want me to carry your hair care line, but when I look on your social media page, I see customer complaints about you're not shipping, items broken, things like that. Well, that represents your company. And granted, my order is going to be bigger than just 1 or 2 bottles of shampoo. But if you're not taking care of these customers, I have no assurances that you're going to take care of me.
Okay. That's good. That's good feedback. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even as a consumer, it's funny that you said that. I know that just as an individual person, when you look, social media is everything now, right?
Yes.
So I agree with you. Like, for instance, if I'm looking for a new barber, if I'm looking for a new product, the first thing you do is you go to their social media. Some people don't know how to run their business on their social media. You go there for their business and you see pictures of their kids, you see pictures about this, that, and the other, and not about not about their business. So yeah, that is a good way of trying to weed it out about who's serious and things of that nature.
Yeah. And with social media, and I went for quite a bit of time that you honestly could have looked at my social media and not known who owned the business.
Right.
And, because you are the face of your company. And I'm actually a shy person. So it's kind of hard for me to have to do that. But, people would come into my store, we would talk, I'd see the reviews and they were like, we had the best time and, things like that. And then I'm like, okay, so if a person wants to shop with me, but they're not in Fayetteville, the only option they have is my website. So I have to try to make the website and a social media match. So I have to come outside of my shell. So it's okay to post a picture of who you are so people can identify with you. People like to buy items from people that they identify with. But at the same time, you've got to separate your personal life. I don't have to post my Sunday meal.
Right.
Because I'm not in the food industry.
Right.
But, when I need to pick out a new wig,
right,
I could post that.
Right. Exactly.
You have to balance some of the things so that people understand that this is, because I am small business. I am a mom,
Mhm.
so and that is who I am, and my business kind of is an extension of all of that. So you have to open yourself up some for people to see and to identify with you. Like when I first opened, literally my child was with me. So some of my customers in the beginning, they'll come and they'll ask where he is, and I was like,
Right.
I started laughing. I was like, I told y'all I kicked him out. And they were like, no, bring it back. Well, he's almost 3. And
Mhm.
yeah, a 3-year-old in the store sometimes. But he does make an appearance. And it's fun. And, that was also important to me, making sure that people understand when they come to the store that
Right.
they feel welcome. They feel as though that they can ask questions. And
Mhm.
that was one of the biggest revelations about having a small business, that you really do get a chance to talk and engage with your customers.
So we
And
talked a little bit about other companies, other small companies, and so you did mention that sometimes you will get telephone calls with people asking, hey, I make a body butter, and I would
yes.
love to, get shelf space in your company. How do you vet out those companies and determine if those products are a fit for your store?
Well, one of the things that we check is your social media presence.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's a big part of it. The other thing is, do you have a product that we don't currently have on our shelves? What makes your product unique? So we kind of go through that. We have those conversations back and forth. Um, I would love to just be able to have a ton of different other small businesses
Right.
here, but we have to keep a certain mix
Mm-hmm.
because they're brands that draw people into the store. Um, and then when you have this other brand that's not so well known, then you having to educate customers. Another thing that I will tell any small business, especially in the hair care, because like I said, some of the major brands are dropping lines like what seems like every other week. Um, I try to filter through some of those. Um, but I would tell them definitely look at your packaging, look how your social media is run. Um, when you're wanting to send a product to sell it into a company for shelf space, do you have marketing material to go with it? A
Mm-hmm.
lot of times they don't. They have the product, but they don't have any marketing behind it. And it doesn't have to be anything huge. It can really just be an index card information about the product.
Okay.
Someone comes in the store, they might not buy it today, but if there's a card or something I can give them, then they might read up on it. And that actually does happen. It's
Mm-hmm.
natural hair care people research products all the time.
They do.
So
Like the
sometimes I'm
mini
like,
CIA
they're
people.
like, did you know this? This I'm like, wow, no, I haven't. Hold on. So something as simple as that is easy to give someone, and they'll come back. Make sure your own site, if you're selling your product online, make sure you have reviews on it. I had a customer actually to come in, a new product that we had on our shelves,
Mm-hmm.
and we were talking about it, and I let her know I'm honest with people about products I use and I don't use personally.
Okay.
Um, and it was a new product. It was a customer request, and she went onto Amazon
Mm-hmm.
and she looked it up and she read the reviews from Amazon. She bought it in my store, but she
Right.
looked at the reviews on Amazon, and people know that Google and Amazon, they have tons of reviews on products.
Yes.
So definitely, if you're a small company, even if you've only sold to your family, get your family to write reviews on the products and have it as a verified buyer
Okay.
so people can see that.
Mhm. It's a good tip for small businesses.
Yeah. And that's the free stuff you can do.
Right. So, do
Yeah.
you have a network of other hair supply stores or other Black-owned supply stores? Do you have some sort of a network or a support system, so to speak?
Yes. In terms of just other Black owned beauty supply stores, actually within the area that I currently live, in the surrounding counties and city, there are a few, which we all talk together about various problems. And sometimes it's as simple as, okay, this sales rep showed up in my store. Are you in your store? I'm going to send them to you. As
Oh,
I mentioned earlier, the smaller companies are hungry, so they literally will pop up at your store. And you're like, okay, well, go see my friend. So we do recommendations like that. And then there's also online support groups.
okay.
As we all know, Facebook has groups for everything. So there are ones out there, there for there. And then of course, internal to the store, I do have support system here. I have, my employees are great. You know, I don't do all of this by myself. They're here, and anytime that I'm not here, I rely on them, and my customers will say, well, yeah, I saw so and so and they were great. And, and that's always great because it's like one big family here. We have fun. And then, of course, with you have your friends that you call and you're like, okay, so this is the strategy that I was thinking. What do you think about this? Although we all work in different industries, when you're talking about certain business practices, it doesn't matter the industry sometimes.
Right. What's your favorite part of your store?
But my favorite part of my store is my customers.
Okay.
Sometimes um, in being a mom and being a small business owner, it can be very challenging. You don't sleep much, honestly. But even if you're just having that bad day, there always seems to be one customer that comes in and they will put a smile on your face. And a lot of times, it's my smallest little customers. They're so cute. And I have had like one little girl, she came in with her mom,
Mhm.
and she's probably about 7. And she had gone to school, and this was like at the beginning of the school year, and she came home and she was a little upset about her hair because her hair was different from her friends, and
Mhm.
she was going through that. So her mom, who is natural, and they came in here and they were looking for products, and I was like, honey, your hair is gorgeous.
Right.
It's pretty. And so we just talked and we laughed, and little Kiki, and she was good, and everybody was good.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, that's good that, the mom and the daughter had a safe place, so to speak, to come to and kind of talk about the day and to get some encouragement and then walk away with products that will, hopefully lift her spirits too. So
Yeah,
that's good.
usually with my little girls, and especially if they had been here before, usually they just want a hair bow. I just want a hair bow.
But still, it's the little things that mean a lot, right?
They they'll have your conversation, they'll get their little laugh on, and
Right.
then they're straight to their little hair bows, and they're just as happy. It's
Um,
like,
if money and time were limitless, what would you do?
oh, um, at this point in time, if it was, it would be a beauty bar supply store everywhere. um, and I say that just because we honestly have fun in the store. Um, my customers can actually stay in the store for 30 to 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And, I'm talking to other business owners and they're like, what are you guys doing? And I'm like, we're talking about hair and skin. You know, we start there, and then before it's all said and done, we're talking about eczema. You know, I had a customer today. She's an eczema mommy, just like myself. You know, that stuff takes time. We talk about that. We talk about we talk about a lot of things in the store. Um, so if we could replicate that for all women across the U.S.,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the only thing we don't have is maybe a bottle of wine, but you know,
Right.
for some, if that's your preference. But we, you know, it's just sometimes it's just good, and sometimes we have people that just stop by. We just stopped by to see what you're doing,
Oh, okay.
or
What
we
is
drove by. We didn't see your car. Where were you at? Like, well, guys, I'm sorry, I had to go somewhere. Well, you
right?
weren't here, so we just came to tell you. So, you know, and we had one parent. Our daughter has gone off to college now, and she stopped by and it's like, okay, well, how's she doing in school? And she tells me, oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you, she got a full ride, and we're all both in here, and we're
Wow.
just happy. And we're like, congratulations, you know. And
Yeah.
so we're really kind of a part of the community more and more. So if everyone could just have that opportunity, then definitely.
Yeah. That's good. It definitely sounds like you are um it's not just about servicing. It sounds like it's a family. Like it's like I said, it's a
Yeah.
kind of a safe place. Yeah. That
Like
sounds
I said,
good.
some of them they know my son.
Yeah.
They come and you know, and then some of them have little small kids. Our kids are about the same age.
Mhm.
So, you know, when they're both in here, I do warn other new customers that don't know, just overlook the kids.
But when
It's
someone asks about you in your store, what would you like them to say?
they felt welcome. That's the ultimate goal. Whether we have the product you're looking for, or the or we don't have it and we gotta figure it out, or you have some kind of problem relating to your hair or skin, whatever that may be,
Mhm.
whether we could give you the answer or service you in that capacity is wonderful. But I want you to definitely feel as though you are welcome at any point in time to walk through those doors. Now
Awesome.
on Sunday we close.
Well, I thank you so much. I appreciate you for coming and bumping your gums with me. Do you have any other final thoughts or anything else you want to share about you, your store?
Basically, well, we kind of did cover a lot of things, but definitely I will say to any, since this is a small business format, anybody looking to start um, a small business, you can do it. Number one, you've got to understand that it does take a lot of work, and there are going to be times that you may not sleep very much, or things that you can't go and do because you're trying to get your business off the ground. But if you put the time and the effort, I know this sounds cliche, if you put that in, you can grow.
Mhm.
And also in that growth, I will tell anyone, you have to educate yourself. You have to be willing to learn. I was very fortunate. Not only do I have a bachelor's degree, but I have a master's degree as well. Um, and people are like, well, you don't need to have that to run a business. It's true. You
Mhm.
don't necessarily have to have it, but it makes certain things a lot easier,
Mhm.
because you're not having to research everything on how to run a business. How do I understand a balance sheet? How do I understand cost? You don't have to sit there and understand research to figure out how do I do this and why is it important. You kind of already know why those are important. So you're spending more time doing other activities. So I will definitely tell anyone before starting any industry, make sure you understand the business basics,
Mhm.
um, because that is really where a lot of businesses can show. Because I know there are a lot of creative people, and creative people have all different kinds of products, and you can sell them to probably about anyone. But you also got to understand the business side to it. How much does this cost to produce? How much does it cost to ship? All of that stuff sounds very boring
Right.
in itself, but that is the difference between a growing business and a struggling business, or a business that fail. And you may not have the time or the desire to get into that part, and that's okay. But that's when you partner with someone, um, to bring them on board. But also understand that if you're partnering with people, it's
Right.
like a marriage.
Yeah.
It's like a marriage. So I would definitely say understand the foundation. And I know in this particular industry, people are like, well, how hard is it to start a beauty supply store? How hard is it to start any store?
Right.
It's just got a couple of different, I just sell a different product.
Right. Excuse me. I
But
came
you gotta
across your
understand.
Facebook page, and when I read this story that they did of you in the Fayetteville Observer,
Mm-hmm.
let me slide into her DM and see if she would be open to coming and chatting with us. So I appreciate you saying yes.
Oh, definitely, definitely,
Thank
definitely.
you very much. Gummies, thank
Thank
you so
you.
much for watching. I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule as well to watching me bump my gums. And have a great day on purpose, guys.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.